In this video, we're going to be drawing angles in standard position. So to do this, we are going to first start with what basically amounts to the XY axis. So you're going to want to draw that on your paper first. The side that is positive X, we're going to label the initial side. It's the initial side because basically our drawings of angles are all going to start on this side. We're always going to start there. We can label it 0 degrees, and moving around the diagram in a counterclockwise fashion, we're going to continue to label it 90, 180, 270, and back at 0 degrees we can also label it 360 degrees. The first angle we're going to draw, 130 degrees. So again, we're going to start on our initial side. We always start there. We're going to move counterclockwise. So, moving counterclockwise, we pass 90 degrees and we end up somewhere in the top left in between 90 and 180. You can just eyeball where 130 is in between 90 and 180, but we're in the top left. The arm that we end up with, we call the terminal side. Terminal meaning where it ends, just like the word terminate or termination. So that was the first angle we drew, 130 degrees. Let's do another one. Let's draw a 70-degree angle. Well, start with your XY axis. Start on your initial side, move counterclockwise, and end at 70 degrees. It's not quite 90 degrees, so we're somewhere in the top right. Let's do one more together. Let's draw a negative angle this time. Let's draw a negative angle. Let's draw negative 210 degrees. Start with your XY axis. Start on the negative, or start on the initial side. A negative angle moves clockwise. So I'm going to move clockwise past negative 90, past negative 180, up into the top left. My terminal side ends in the top left. That is negative 210 degrees. So a major takeaway from this lesson is that when drawing a positive angle, we move counterclockwise, starting at the initial side. A positive angle moves counterclockwise, starting from the initial side. Therefore, a negative angle, if we're trying to draw a negative angle, we're going to move clockwise, starting at the initial side. All of our angles start at that initial side. Positive angles move counterclockwise. Negative angles move clockwise. So one last thing to talk about. I've been talking about locations, top left, bottom right, top right. There's a better way to describe locations of terminal sides. We use quadrants. So if you think of that XY axis, we actually number these locations. So starting in the top right, that is quadrant 1, and moving counterclockwise around, we have quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So let's describe location with quadrant number. The first one we did, 130 degrees, that terminal side is in quadrant 2. The second one, when we drew 70 degrees, that was quadrant 1. And the last one we did together, negative 210 degrees, that terminal side ended in quadrant 2. Okay, a few more examples together. For each problem, draw the angle in standard position and identify the quadrant the terminal side lies in. So key vocabulary: standard position, quadrant, and terminal side. 315 degrees is almost a full circle, but we're not quite at 360. But the quadrant that our terminal side lies in is quadrant 4. Next problem, 2 pi over 3 radians. So this is not in degrees. If we're going to draw this, we would want to convert to degrees first. In a previous video of mine, you can refresh how to convert from radians to degrees. Here I am converting radians to degrees. So 2 pi over 3 radians is equal to 120 degrees. Now we are ready to draw this angle. Knowing that 2 pi over 3 radians is 120 degrees, draw that angle. The terminal side lies in quadrant 2. We're not quite at 180 degrees, but we are past 90 degrees. That puts us in quadrant 2. Here we have negative 3 pi over 2 radians. Negative 3 pi over 2 radians, doing a quick unit conversion to degrees. Calculations tell us that this is equivalent to negative 270 degrees. Since we have a negative angle, we're going to move clockwise. Negative angles move clockwise. Starting at our initial side, we move negative 270 degrees. That puts us directly upward. So you might be asking, well, what quadrant is this in? We're not really in quadrant 1, we're not really in quadrant 2, and we're not going to say either of those. So we would describe it as being on the y-axis. Not really in a quadrant, but on the y-axis. So one last thing we haven't really talked about. What if the angle is greater than 360 degrees? Let's draw 480 degrees. Positive 480. We're going to move counterclockwise past 90, past 180, up to 360. Well, anything past 360 kind of just repeats. 480 is 120 past 360. So go 120 past 360. That puts you in quadrant 2. So 480 is one full circle plus an additional 120 in quadrant 2.